The Aleutians are a chain of volcanic islands stretching from the Alaskan Peninsula to Siberia. The Aleut people used a particular type of kayak called a Baidarka to hunt for sea mammals. The Baidarkas were noted for their swiftness. Baidarkas could have places for 1, 2, or 3 people. From the 17th century up until the early 20th century, they were most notable for taking part in sea otter hunts. The furs of these creatures were worth more than their weight in gold, and the zeal with which they were pursued almost led to their extinction. Aleuts worked with Russian promischleniki, who traded the furs. The Baidarkas worked the seas from Siberia down to Baja California, and rivalries with other Native American people led to hostilities, most notably the Battle of Sitka, where hundreds of Baidarkas were used to tow the becalmed Russian ships. The Baidarka that is to be built is a replica of one collected in the Aleutians in 1894. It was recently surveyed by Harvey Golden, a world-renowned expert on all types of kayak, and he was kind enough to send me a copy of his survey drawing. The first step in the process is known as lofting. The drawing of the kayak is scaled up to full size so that components can be accurately sawn out. Here I am drawing the complex bow structure. Many of the Baidarka's components are curved, and the strongest way of making these is to choose naturally curved pieces of wood. Unfortunately, timber yards stock only straight-grained timber, so I collect pieces of driftwood and select the parts with the best grain. Fortunately, most of the materials can be bought from a timber yard, and here is the pile of wood, mostly cedar and fir, that is to be used to build the Baidarka. Templates are made for the shapes of the driftwood parts, and they are cut to size on the bandsaw to make the deck beams. The deck of the kayak is made from 2 lengths of fir called gunnels that run the length of the kayak. These are connected by curved deck beams, like the rungs of a ladder, mortised into slots cut in the gunnels. No glue or pinning is used. The whole structure must be kept flexible and springy to allow it to give with the stresses it suffers when in use. The ends of the gunnels have flat wooden plates pegged to them, and once the deck beams are all in place, these are lashed together, completing the deck structure. Baidarkas have very characteristic bow pieces, with a gap between the upper bow piece and the lower one. On most Baidarkas, the lower bow piece curves upwards. The exact design varies with where the Baidarka comes from and when it was built. This is a replica of a kayak from the island of Unalaska. It is believed that this kind of bow piece helps to make the Baidarka fast and seaworthy. A steam box is set up, and strips of oak are put in it to absorb the steam.
Keep it up.
Keep it warm. After a couple of minutes, the oak strips are flexible enough to be bent to the shape of the Baidarka's ribs. The bending process. Take away the webbing, which will be flat. The old kayak builders used to bend the ribs using their teeth. Position. The ribs are temporarily clamped between the gunnels and left to cool down and retain their shape. The ribs are marked for cutting to length and the ends are whittled down to fit into holes in the gunnels. The keelson is made in 3 parts, lashed together to form hinges in order to keep the frame flexible and resilient. The finished bow piece forms the forward section of the keelson. The frame of a Baidarka was often painted. The original frame was painted blue and red, so I'm following this colour scheme. The upper bow piece is fitted between the ends of the gunnels. It is not fixed to them in any way, but is free to slide around, maintaining the Baidarka's characteristic flexibility. The ribs are lashed to the keelson and to narrow strips of fir, 4 on each side, called hull stringers. The lashing starts at one end of the rib and continues across the kayak. It is tied off at the other end of the rib. This is done for every rib. Once all the ribs have been lashed to the hull stringers and the keelson, the frame is turned over. Deck stringers are needed to stop the skin of the kayak sagging between the deck beams and to give the deck a roof shape that will shed water. The deck stringers are lashed to each deck beam and to the upper bow piece and the tail fin at the back of the frame. You can see how springy the frame is by the way it wobbles while the lashing is done. All that remains to be done to complete the frame is to fit a cockpit hoop or coaming that has been bent into an oval shape using the steam box. The coaming is lashed onto two of the deck beams and to curved car lines to support it at the sides. The frame is now complete and ready to have its skin put on. The skin of this Baidarka will be made from heavy cotton canvas. The original frame would have been covered in sealskin, but that isn't feasible nowadays. Makers use a variety of materials, natural or synthetic. I personally feel that a natural fabric is more in keeping with this type of craft. The skinning process starts by sewing the canvas around the bow piece and between the upper and lower bow pieces. When the canvas is securely attached to the bow piece, the frame is tied to a tree so that the canvas can be stretched as hard as possible along the length of the frame. In a series of pulls, I mark how far I can stretch the skin with a pencil mark. Then I sew a pocket for the end of the tail fin to hook into when the skin is stretched. The hull is flipped over and the very start of the deck seam is sewn. The canvas is tightened around the hull by using a zigzag line. Little loops of string are sewn into the canvas on both sides and a line zigzags from one side to the other. It is tightened as far as it can go without tearing the canvas and then tied off at the ends. The deck seam is stitched in 2 stages, with the 2 sides first of all being brought together and the skin tightened as far as possible using a running stitch. The edges of the canvas are then rolled over and stitched to the deck. The canvas is stitched around the combing and the skinning is complete. The canvas is painted with ordinary solvent-based household paint. The first few coats are thinned to soak into the canvas and preserve it. 4 or 5 coats are needed for a smooth finish. Baidarkas have a number of straps on the deck to hold pieces of equipment, harpoons originally. These would have been made from strips of sealskin, but in this case I'm using jute rope soaked in linseed oil to preserve it. Baidarkas often had their foredeck decorated with walrus whiskers, grass or feathers, dyed using bright colours. I'm using nylon monofilament to represent the whiskers and coloured wool. The Aleuts used paddles that were ridged on one face and plain on the other, usually painted red and black. The Baidarka was launched on a breezy autumn day. It rode over the waves beautifully and showed an excellent turn of speed too, despite the chop. All in all, it has been a very rewarding project.